All right, let's jump into it. So, what did the Giants like do right this week? Because finally get a win after six games. What do you guys think like we did right? Because I mean, I feel like the Giants kind of like have played a little bit better every single game, and I think they finally kind of pulled out. What do you guys think was the kind of game changer for them?
I thought their defense played well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people say stuff about their defense. The defense actually played pretty well. They got some. They brought in a couple of guys. They brought in Bradbury. They brought in Logan Ryan. They brought in
Mm-hmm.
Martinez. They got David Mayo back this week. And overall, the defense has played well. And they got some other. They got some other young guys too. It's the offense that is the problem. I mean, I don't know
Right.
what is going on with Daniel Jones.
So you
He
don't
needs
like
to get
you
his
don't like
head on
Daniel
his
Jones.
backside.
I think that Jones has definitely played pretty subpar this season. I don't think though that like I can say like you know what he's bad. Like it doesn't really change my opinion of him. I think he's just having kind of a bad start. I mean he sees a lot of like you see him on a couple plays and you're like wait this guy's really good and then he throws an interception to the back of the end zone and you're like all right we understand. It's a turnover problem for Jones and I think honestly he didn't play a great game. The defense won this game 100%, but he's got a lot he's got to improve on. And Blake Martinez too has played really well. He had like 14 tackles, something like that. Jake Crowder had like 10. The defense actually played really well this game. They played a lot better. Every single game they played better. We didn't have Peppers last game. We brought him back. He was kind of in and out. We had Bradbury who had an interception. So yeah, the defense played well.
Yeah, the defense has been pretty much like the bright spot all season if you think about it
Yeah.
because we've been in like almost every game. Obviously, the 49er game was a disaster, but every other game, they've been like relatively close. It's really just the offense needing to gel more. And obviously, when Saquon goes down, that's obviously a killer. But,
Yeah,
I
it
think
can
like as Devontae Freeman gets more reps, once we get like Sterling Shepard back, hopefully he's back
right.
soon. I think just getting more chemistry. Obviously, it's a new coaching staff. 1-5 speaks. It is what it is, but I think hopefully the offense will start to improve a little bit as we get further into the season.
Right. Like out of the last 5 games, we lost 4 out of the 5 of them by 10 points or less. So we're not out of the fight at any means. I think that every game we played was close. The Bears game came down to the last drive. 2 weeks ago came down to the last drive. So I think the Giants have, they have a lot to figure out. Losing Barkley week 1, they had to completely revamp their run game. Pretty much really they don't have an identity right now. So that's why the Giants have such like a confusing time is that, like they don't know what they want to be. They're not really a run team right now because there's not enough. They don't. I mean, they gave Freeman the ball like a couple times. He had like 61 yards, something like that. He had one of his best games. They have like Wayne Gallman. You can throw in a couple times there. Deion Lewis. So there's like 3 guys trying to make up for one of like the best players, probably in this generation. So it's hard to do that. Passing game, I'm looking at the stats and Darius Slayton seems to be the only guy catching the ball. I mean, Golden Tate had 1 catch. Evan Ingram has 1 catch. I mean, that's a problem. You have to give the ball to your receivers. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I agree. I think. Sorry, you go first.
okay. No, I was just gonna mention it just correlates to like Daniel Jones and this whole passing offense here. You bring in a guy like Jason Garrett, who had moderate success as an OC for Dallas, and I thought it was a pretty good OC. Bring him in, and it's not clicking. It kind of clicked the Dallas game, but that is Dallas, and we don't have any receivers right now. We have Slayton, who right now is our number 1,
Right.
and then Golden Tate doing nothing at all, like you mentioned, and then Washington game, C.J. Board went down, but he hasn't really done much. Then you bring in an undrafted free agent who I think he got a couple snaps this week, and Austin Mack. So
Right.
we have no receivers on this team, and that's a problem for the offense as a whole and Daniel Jones because there's no one to throw it to. I think the play calling, I honestly just think that over time it's just going to click more,
Mm-hmm.
but I hope it does because, it's weird how you see DJ just from last year's offense, the Pat Shurmur offense, he succeeded very well. And this year he's, on decline, which I hate to see, but that could have something to do with the offense.
So, Jordan, I definitely agree with you. First, I just want to say, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but Jordan, you look like Daniel Jones, man. I don't know what – I just saw that, and I looked at you, and I was like, wait a minute. Because you said Daniel Jones, and then, I'm thinking of him in my head, and I'm looking at you, and I'm like, dude, you look like Daniel Jones. I don't know if you've ever gotten that before. Do you get that ever?
I might have gotten that, once before. I do have a Jones jersey in my closet right now.
You probably throw it on. I think you're Daniel Jones, dude. It's crazy.
Probably my Halloween costume this year.
Yeah. But I agree with your point that I think the offensive play calling this year has gotten a lot better, I think, because, you look back at the past head coaches, you had like Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, and the kind of play call they had with Manning under center and, kind of how they almost wasted yardage with Barkley, throwing behind the line of scrimmage. He has to make all these plays. Every time it was a slant route here to Shepard, slant route. There was no big plays. And the fact that Manning couldn't run was a problem. But, we're seeing that Daniel Jones is starting to take over and kind of make plays out of nothing, Daniel Jones is not nearly the rookie he was anymore. He knows how to get out of the pocket. He knows how to sometimes not take a sack and actually make a play out of something. And I think that Jason Garrett has started to work with him and starting to work with Devontae Freeman to try and figure out a different style. They against Dallas, they did a fake field goal. I would have never expected the Giants to do that. That's just not a Giants style play. And they've been doing a lot of jet sweeps. They went with Evan Ingram. They got a touchdown there. They're trying to revamp this offense because it's always been the Giants have always had a defense first and then they figure out the offense. But if they can figure out the offense, I think that's important. And I definitely agree with you on that, Jordan. I think that the offense is getting a lot better.
You know what? I think another problem is their tight end, Evan Ingram. His rookie year, he was fantastic. Especially under the circumstances. They didn't have great coaching. Eli was definitely towards the very, very end of the line. And since then, he's had some injuries, but even when he's been in the lineup, he really hasn't been that good. Remember, this is a guy who was a first-round draft pick, and I haven't seen anything that's wowed me from him. And he's a guy that I think really needs to step up with Saquon out and no really true number one receiver on this team and a very young quarterback who's really has no offensive line. And I think he's had maybe one game he had 6 catches and a touchdown. Other than that, he really hasn't done much this year. And he's a guy I think really needs to step up.
Yeah, I think Ingram is interesting. He, like you said, he had a really good rookie season, and then they kind of just don't want to give him the ball a lot. He plays. He doesn't really I feel like he doesn't play like a tight end. He plays more like a receiver. He's got speed. He can play almost like a slot receiver, and honestly, he can make big plays. He's a big enough guy that he can break a couple tackles. He can get a couple first downs. But like I said, like you just said, we're at a deficit of receivers. We only have 4 active on the roster right now. So right now, you got to be thinking, how can we get Evan Ingram the ball? No one's going to be expecting him to get the ball because he already hasn't been getting it for the past 6 games. So right now, they should be trying to revamp their offense around not only Slayton but Ingram, and then you kind of have to make Devontae Freeman kind of a receiver too. You have to kind of work with what you have. We don't have a lot to work with, but we have enough. We can make an offense out of that. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I think you made a good point with saying he's a receiver because you notice he's not really built like a bigger George Kittle type of tight end or a Gronk even. He's kind of he's a little slim for a tight end. So I feel but then also I agree. I think he's been very disappointing in terms of production. I feel he's really you sometimes you don't see him get the ball until late in the game where it's well, we could have used that earlier. I don't know if it's because he's not getting open or I don't know if it's the play calling isn't designed to go to him as much as it would be with someone else. But yeah, it'd be good to see him get a few more. Obviously the other week against Dallas, the fake field goal, that's his ball. Of course, it gets called back because it's a penalty. So there's ways to get him involved. Obviously, the rushing touchdown is another one, but it would be good to see him, just at least just get open a little bit. I don't know if it's like he's not running the right route. I'm not sure what the issue is, but it'd be nice to get something. It'd be nice to get him going soon because we definitely need him.
Yeah, I think he was hurt too. He was hurt for like last season. He was out with a hamstring or something like that. So that was another problem with receivers for the Giants is like they're always hurt. Sterling Shepard's been out. Sterling Shepard has not played more than like 2 consecutive games, and I can't remember how long. And he's a guy that
I don't think he's played a full season since like his rookie year. Which
no,
is like
he hasn't.
ridiculous.
He was such a when we had Odell Beckham, they were such like a 1-2 receiver that was such a good complement to each other, and like
For sure.
he was there then, and now when Odell leaves, we wanted him to be our kind of wide receiver one. Like we wanted him to be kind of the guy that was going to step up, and I feel like he just hasn't been available enough. Every time he's on the field, he's getting off the field right away. So I think hopefully Darius Slayton can be the kind of guy that can step in, and he him and Daniel Jones have a really good connection. They have a lot of chemistry. Jones he's definitely his favorite target, and I like Slayton. I think he could be a big star in this league. I really think he could. What do you guys think of Dave Gettleman?
Okay, Dave Gettleman needs to be fired. He needs to go. And I'm gonna tell you why. He hasn't put a good product on the field. He's had a couple of good draft picks. Jones, I think, will be a great pick. Obviously, Saquon, as long as he comes back better than ever, which I believe he will. The offensive lineman, Will Hernandez, the move to get Kevin Zeitler was a good move, but other than that, he's honestly been a train wreck. He gives Odell Beckham Jr. $95 million over 5 years. He came out and said, I did not sign Odell Beckham Jr. to trade him. A few months later, he trades him with less than a year after he got that big contract. Trades him for 2 draft picks and the young defensive back who still hasn't clicked. And he came out and said, we had a culture problem as his excuse. Like, all right, I know OBJ, he had some issues, off the field. He has his issues, of course. At one point, the team owner came out and said, he needs to play a little better, he needs to do a little less talking. But like, I could not believe that Dave Gettleman came out and said, I couldn't believe he traded him less than a year after he gave him that huge contract, and only a few months after he said that he wasn't going to trade him. And a couple of years ago, remember they had all that dead money? That was all because of Gettleman, because he gave Eli that big contract at the very end of his career, which didn't work out. He should have moved on from him 2 or 3 years before he did. And we signed Golden Tate for right after he traded OBJ. I didn't like it at the start, and that deal has not worked whatsoever. You think of some other guys he's brought in that haven't worked out. He's brought in some offensive linemen for a lot of money. That Nate Solder comes to mind. Solder's been at best below average for he's one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the league. He's not even playing this year. And so, if you ask me, I think I would be surprised if he's the GM week 1, 2021.
So does anyone think that we won the trade of Beckham to the Browns and then 2 draft picks and Jabril Peppers? Does anyone think we won that trade in any sense?
It's hard to say, but I think we did because you're hearing talks of Odell leaving Cleveland. And if that happens, we won the trade. If he leaves Cleveland, we won because, he's not there anymore. He's gone. So, and I think Jabril Peppers is a good player. And then we used that draft pick on Dexter Lawrence, I think. And I think he's been productive. So. I think so. And he's been productive. So right now it's hard to say. I think we're probably going to win it. But at the same time, we need a receiver.
I think Jabril Peppers is actually I think he's a really talented player. He actually he grew up around my area. He went to a high school close to me, and I actually watched him in high school. I watched him in college. He was a Heisman. He was a guy that almost won a Heisman, and I think in the pros he's definitely had moments of blossoming. There's things he needs to work on for sure, but I think he has a lot of potential as a back. I think he really does. That's why I like the trade, and I think that Odell Beckham was as talented as he was, and he was a great player to watch. He was really fun to watch, but I don't know if he is the kind of caliber receiver that they really want long term. What do you guys think about that?
I think you have to consider the timeline of events too. So basically what you were saying, they signed him, they trade him. Obviously that doesn't look good, but there is some context to this. I think we need to at least realize, I think it was a few weeks into that season, first year of his deal. You guys remember the interview with him and Lil Wayne, ESPN, and he's saying how they ask him, well, are you happy in New York? And he's he doesn't really say yes. He's kind of well, this is just where I am because I play here. And then he's taking shots at Eli, we can't throw the ball down the field. So already you're turning heads in the locker room. And he missed the last few games that year. I'm not even sure if he was hurt, but that's what they said he was. So it's interesting. He created a bit of a headache 1 year into the deal, and the Browns come out at you and they said, we'll give you 2 picks. I think you have to take it, especially basically we turned one into the quarterback. We turned another into I don't know, remember off the top of my head, but I thought we got good enough value. And
right.
Well, like you also said, there's already trade talk of him potentially leaving the Browns. So it's is he really worth the headache after all?
All right. It's week 7 now. So this is going to be Joe Judge's 7th game as the Giants head coach. Do we like him or not?
When he got hired, some people were saying this and that about him. I did like him. First of all, he came from New England. Obviously, Bill Belichick he's one of the most successful coaches in NFL history. Although a lot of his assistant coaches have not had a lot of success. Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia are 2 that come to mind. He's a special teams coordinator. Special teams, they work with the entire team, not just offense, not just defense. An interesting stat is Bill Parcells, Hall of Fame head coach, he has a special teams background. Belichick, he has a special teams background. Mike Tomlin, coach of the Steelers, he's won a ring, one of the best head coaches in the league. He has a special teams background. So, also, I actually think this might open the floodgates for special teams coordinators becoming real coaching candidates, because it's very rare that a special teams coordinator goes from special teams coach right to head coach. They might be a special teams coach, then they get they become a coordinator, and then they become a head coach. Right. Maybe now if Joe Judge can have success, but I do believe he can. Giants has some good young pieces. I think he's a good young coach who obviously it's not the start he wanted, but you gotta remember he lost Saquon Barkley, who was honestly by far their best player. Yeah. That's a huge loss. There's no one on their team. There's very few people in the league that could replace him. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he has even any sort of success with the Giants. Could that lead to more and more special teams coordinators jumping right from the special teams coach to a head coach?
Right. Mia, what do you think? Do you think Judge is the kind of coach that we can have him as a stable head coach for 3, 4, 5 years? Do you think this is a guy we can have? Because we've had to go through 3 head coaches already, and we can't just go looking for a Tom Coughlin. It's not going to happen. So do you like Joe Judge? Do you think this is a guy that can be the center of the New York Giants?
I think it's too hard to tell and make judgments like this after 6 weeks. I think people do that all the time. They just want to place blame on the coach, and they want to say, well, this is why we're successful, this is why we're not. It's all on this guy. So I haven't seen anything that shows that he's an issue. I know we're struggling obviously with wins, but I don't know. I think I could. I think he, I just haven't seen anything that's like this will never get better. Like obviously they're getting better every week. They're fixing the things they need to fix, and like, he doesn't take the blame for everything. So I think it's too easy to tell, but I have a good feeling about him.
Yeah, no pun intended. I don't think we can judge him until the end of the season, to be honest. I really don't think that we can judge him until he's had a season. In his first press conference, he said, "You know what? I'm kind of an old school kind of coach. Physical, hard-hitting defense, hard conditioning. Like really just old school. That like New York value that he's bringing. That's what he brings to the plate. Now, I think that really is kind of like what like New York Giants football is. The defense is always won. When we won 2 Super Bowls, we were 10-5, we were 9-7, and we won because we had great defenses, and we got lucky on a couple of plays. But I think that he brings a lot to the plate, and like you said, it's too early to judge him right now. But I think what he's done so far is good, and there really shouldn't be any finger pointing, to be honest. I think that's what I would say. And to piggyback off that and talk a little bit about the Thursday night game against the Eagles. What do we think about that?
That's a game that I think the Giants.
Whoever wants to go.
Oh, no, yeah, Jake, you can go. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's a game the Giants really need to win. You got to remember, they are one game out of first place. They are one game out of first place. The Eagles have so many injuries on offense. I don't think Miles Sanders is going to play. So many of their receivers are banged up. Ertz is out. Their offensive line is ruined by injuries. And this is a game that if the Giants win and Dallas loses, they'll be tied for first. So Dallas will have the head-to-head, but they'll have the same record as the Dallas Cowboys. So, and the Eagles just have so many injuries right now. I don't love the way Carson Wentz is playing. He's played better the last few weeks, but still, for a guy that's making as much money as he is from a number 2 pick, I know they might get Deshaun Jackson back, but this team is so banged up on offense. I think it's a game that they definitely need to win.
Go for it, Jordan. Were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say that this is a big divisional game. We are like the Giants. NFC East is in like the worst division in football in probably history. This is just terrible for football. It's great for us. 1-5, we're a game out. But this is a game that I think we can win. I think it's 100% possible. We haven't beaten the Eagles since 2016, I think. But there's always a way that the Eagles just could beat us, and it's just like,
right.
I think we can win this game. I think they're going to use the momentum off of the Washington game to, look for a win. Carson Wentz, as you said, has not been playing great, has a lot of turnovers. I think James Bradbury, honestly, just to go off of that point, he's having a Pro Bowl year this year. I really like James Bradbury as an addition to this defense. He's been looking great. I think he's definitely going to have a pick this game. And, this is a game we have to win. If we're going to be, a game out from first, we're 1-5. We got to win this game. No question.
I definitely agree. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of like sick and tired of the draft talk every year after we start like basically this. And like, obviously it's a bad division, but it would be kind of nice for a change just to have a season of like, all right, at least they're competitive, within the division. They're showing fight, winning a few games at least, just for the sake of the team spirit. Like, it would be nice to see that and having to talk about who they're going to take in the draft, 6 or 7 months from now. It's just, it's a wasted conversation at this point. Like, so yeah, if they can squeeze out a win, obviously Philly hasn't been kind to us playing there, but if they can squeeze out a win there, it'd be great. And who knows? And I mean, the division is so winnable and losable at the same time, where just win a few games here and there, you might get something going.
So yeah, you guys are hitting on a lot of good points right now because we can't tank for Trevor. That's not like that should be out of our vocabulary. That's New York Jet vocabulary, I would say, more so than the New York Giants for sure, 100%. And now looking at our schedule, playing the Eagles Thursday, banged up team, bad O-line. They don't have a lot of weapons left. Sanders isn't playing. I mean, we went into San Francisco with kind of a similar idea. Like they had a lot of guys banged up, and we were hoping, Nick Mullins, we could try and pummel them, but they played good. The 49ers are still a good team. They proved that. I think this is different though, and the thing that we have to realize is that we're going to play the Eagles like within 4 weeks of each other. So we're going to play this team 2 more times, or 1 more time after this. We're playing Washington again. We're playing Tampa Bay, then Bengals, Seahawks, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Cowboys. So we're looking at a couple wins. I really think that we can be very competitive in this division. I don't think that there is right now, I don't know if there's a standout team right now. You could say the Eagles are the best in the NFC or NFC East right now, just by like what they have and what they can do. But I really think this is going to be a closer game than you think. Any Giants-Eagles games are always dogfights. They're always just really a lot of the time close games. They're very sometimes unpredictable. And I think that we won 1 game and where we think we're going to go, not 10-5. No, probably not. But I do like our chances against Philadelphia tomorrow night for sure. And honestly, just to talk about NFC East teams, the Cowboys, I mean, they were supposed to win the division, and now it's they come out Monday night and they get completely embarrassed. I mean, the team looks a mess. They look like, they don't look good. They don't look good at all. And I think that now that we can beat Washington, we can beat Philadelphia, we played close with Dallas. What do you guys think? You guys think we could win the division? I mean, we can win a 7-9 record. Do you think that's possible?
I definitely think it's possible. I think if we've already beat Washington, we can definitely do it again, especially because they already benched their starter. Now Dallas doesn't have Dak. Not that Andy Dalton's terrible, but I mean he didn't look great the other day. I personally dislike the Eagles a lot, so I'm really hoping we win. I don't really have much faith in Carson Wentz. I really think he's kind of overrated. So I think we definitely can, especially this week since they have so many people that are out. Kind of hurting. Zach Ertz is on my fantasy team, so that's kind of rough. But no, definitely. I think we have the best chance of anyone at this point in time.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was at a Giants-Eagles game 3 years ago. Just the Eagles fans are just so just disrespectful. I don't know if I saw a video on Twitter or something like that. It was some guy in a Wentz jersey climbing down the stands. What are you doing? I don't like Philadelphia either. I really don't. And like I said, I think we can beat them twice. I think we can beat Washington again. I think this is all possible. I think the Giants are such an underdog this year, and their narrative hasn't really been told yet. They don't have I don't think they have an identity enough. Their record didn't look good, but you know what? I think it's a turning point. I think it's a turning point in the season, to be honest with you.
I honestly don't think the Giants are in as bad a spot as it seems right now. If you just look at every other team in the division right now,
one win. There are a lot of teams with 1 win right now.
Right, and consider the expectations too. The Cowboys expected to win the division, and now you got players saying their coaches are terrible, their defense is a mess. They lost their quarterback for this season. The Washington team can't figure out who their quarterback is.
Right.
The Eagles, they're what are they 1-4-1, and Carson Wentz isn't playing well. If you told their fans that coming in, they'd be freaking out, and so they got plenty of injuries.
Right.
Obviously, for the Giants, the results have to be better than 1-5. But if you told me right now, all right, it's a foot race from here on out, we have our own issues to fix, but I don't think our issues are nearly as bad as those other teams right now.
I agree with you right now. I believe the Texans, the Vikings are 1-5. The Texans I think they're a good team. They put up a fight against the Titans, who are probably one of the top 5 teams in the NFL right now. They took them to overtime. Deshaun Watson's playing great, but they're 1-5. Why are they 1-5? To be honest, I think it was more a coaching problem, and they couldn't get the ball rolling. Even the Falcons didn't look terrible against Minnesota. You know, it's a weird year. It's a really weird year, and I think that a record is not showing the effort we're putting in. And I think that the more going towards the second half of the season, I think we could really see a couple wins and a fight for the division. 100%. And actually, one more. I wanted to talk about one other thing because we were talking about Dave Gettleman before, and I know Jake, you said he should be fired after this year. He's 10-28. His record is currently as the GM of the New York Giants. That's the record since he's took over. So, do you guys think that getting rid of David Gettleman and getting a new GM would help the franchise?
I think so. I wasn't like a big Dave Gettleman supporter, but I wanted him to succeed for this team, and just it's not working. And you can talk about the free agent additions this year and saying how they're good, but it's been 3 years. And I think like Joe Judge, I don't think to put him as, a guy that can say he chooses the next GM along with ownership might like help us, because I personally really like Joe Judge and I like the way he leads his team. So, if you fire Dave Gettleman, get him out of here, and ownership sits down with Judge, and they really find a GM that could work for this team and help them build the right direction, I think that would really help in the long run.
I read an article I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, and it was looking towards the trade deadline, any guys that you would consider trading, and Evan Ingram actually came up as one of them because he obviously is underperformed, and he honestly still is. He has a lot of value to him if you trade him. So do you think it could be a possibility of trading someone? Do you think we could trade before the deadline someone like Evan Ingram, someone like Golden Tate, maybe even? Do you think a trade would help the Giants kind of get a little more room to work on their offense?
Yeah, I would definitely look at it. I mean, because if Evan Ingram's not working, it's not working. Golden Tate's been a weird fit to begin with. And he's getting up there in age, so maybe get a younger player in there for him and just roll with that.
Yeah, I think Golden Tate never really gelled with the team well, to be honest. And I think he's definitely I know there was the fight against the Rams, and that was some kind of issue that he had to figure out. I mean, I guess I understood it. It was something with Jalen Ramsey, some kind of family issue, to be honest. It was something like that. But he's not performing for what he's expected. What he was expected when he was brought to the team. He didn't, because we're looking at Golden Tate and we're thinking this guy can be a good veteran receiver. He can lead young guys and he can help them and we can build around him a little bit, and then he can develop someone like Slayton and he can complement Shepard. But to be honest, he's really he's kind of just a ploy on the field. He's just running routes. Got the ball one time last week, so I think I don't think a trade is out of the question. I think that's definitely a possibility, and I think honestly, the free agency that David Gettleman did put together wasn't bad. I think he sent a lot of good guys, and I think a lot of things more so than what a lot of people will say for the Giants are going well. Personally,
I'm actually gonna disagree with that because I do agree with you guys saying I didn't like Tate signing because they gave him a lot of money for a guy that I thought he was starting to decline. He was getting up there in age. And it was actually, believe it or not, it was I think it was a week or two after they trade Odell Beckham Jr. You trade this guy who, of course, one, because, you're going into a rebuild, wasn't worth paying this guy, and two, frees up all the cap space. And you give a guy in Golden Tate who's not nearly as talented as Odell Beckham Jr., he got $9 or $10 million per season. I think that makes sense, and he hasn't performed. I haven't liked what I've seen from Evan Ingram ever since his rookie year, but the Giants, I think, are ranked 31st in offense this year. If you trade one of those guys, an already bad offense is only going to get worse. After the season, I think they should definitely look into trade to move some pieces around, kind of revamp the offense.
Mm-hmm.
But But right now, I think they finally have some momentum. They got their first win. They're only a game out of first. I wouldn't want to tinker with that. And I do think if they trade them, that will only make the team worse, just because they're already a bad offense and you're subtracting from the already bad offense.
Right. I know, like, statistically, like, I believe in the run game, we got to be second to last right now for, like, total rushing yards, and then passing yards, we're probably, like, bottom 10 right now. So we're under, like, we don't score a lot of points. This has kind of just been known. The Giants don't score a lot of points. We win on defense most of the time. But it would be nice to have a complement of some offensive weapons. All right, so score predictions, guys. Let's go around. What do we think? What do you think the score is going to be Thursday night against the Eagles?
Eagles really have no offensive line right now. The only offensive lineman they have is Jason Kelce, their center. I could not tell you a single offensive lineman that is healthy besides Jason Kelce. The Giants don't have a good pass rush, but I do think they'll be able to get pressure on Carson Wentz, which is one of the reasons he's really struggled, because he hasn't got a lot of protection. Then he panics and he turns the ball over. And they got some guys. Marcus Golden had a really good year last year. They got some young guys. They have a lot of receivers out, and their two corners they brought in this offseason, Bradbury and Ryan, have both played well. I'm a little worried about the Giants' offensive line against the Eagles' defensive line. Eagles' defensive line is very good, but I think this is a low-scoring game, and I am going to actually take the Giants 19-16.
I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Giants too, probably by either a field goal or a touchdown. So I'm going to say like 13-10.
It always comes down to a field goal. It always does. Cam, what do you think?
Yeah, so Thursday night games are always low-scoring in general, and this game, I mean, it's going to be sloppy. Like, you could definitely see turnovers on both sides at multiple points. That being said, I mean, we're due to beat them, especially in Philadelphia. So I'm going to roll with them. It's funny. I was thinking exactly that, like low scoring, like 19-16. That was my exact score too. So funny enough.
Like, you're right. It's going to be an ugly game. It's going to be. I think it's going to be sloppy. It's going to be messy. It's going to come down to the end. I feel like, or what the Giants classically do is they'll get a lead in the first quarter, which rarely happens, but it happens sometimes, and then they just don't score again for the rest of the game.
Right. Like, remember last year where we like 17-3 at half when we lost?
Yeah, who did we play that game?
I think that was Philadelphia. It was like a Monday night game.
Probably was
late in the season.
Like, we'll score. We're playing great. The offense is clicking. We have a great hold. Second quarter, second half. We don't score anything. We go third and out like almost every drive. We don't even try to go for it. And then it's fourth quarter, and it's like 17-17, or it's like 20-17. We're losing now, and then it's like we have to get on a game-winning drive with 2 minutes left, and it's like interception or fall. Like, it happens so much. Yeah, I've seen the story too many times. Yeah, I think this is gonna be low scoring. I think it's gonna be like 17-13 or like 17-10, like something like that. Something in that range. I don't think the Giants or the Eagles are scoring more than 20 points in this game, quite frankly. But yeah, no, I like the Giants for this game. I really do. Not to be biased, I definitely like the Giants. Actually, Jake, we didn't talk about the Jets at all. Did you want to bring anything up about New York? Anything going on with them? Any news?
Adam Gase sucks, and the Jets suck.
I think they're getting rid of him after the season, right? I don't think there's any question about that.
I am still. If I was Joe Douglas, the general manager,
right?
After the Dolphins game, when they were in the locker room, I would have charged into the locker room and fired him. That's what I would have done. Him and Greg Williams, I would have fired those two. I don't care who their interim coach is. Make one of the coaches. I don't care. Grab somebody off the street and throw them in there. Adam Gase is the worst coach of all time.
Yeah, I think so too. And, well, the thing is that, like, I feel like now the Jets' game plan is like, you know what? Let's just keep him here for 16 games. Go 0-16 because he's doing something right. He knows how to lose. So let's have him lose 16 games. Get the first round. Get Trevor Lawrence, right? And at this point, it looks bad for Gase. It just looks terrible for Gase on his record. I mean, he already, like, statistically, has already, like, been under center for teams that have gone like 31st in offense, like rushing, all that stuff. He like just is like not. He should have been fired after last year. I don't know why they.
Oh yeah.
And I think Darnold is probably going to get traded. I think he's done in New York. To be honest, I think he should. I think he should get away from that. What do you think?
I would say, okay, I feel really bad for Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
It's not all of his fault that he struggled. He has not had an offensive line. He hasn't had no weapons in 2 different systems. He has not had a good coach. He's, it's not all of his fault. I do believe he can be a very, very good quarterback. But unfortunately, the NFL is a business, The Jets are better off going 0-16 and getting Trevor Lawrence, who is going to be a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. I would trade him now. I wouldn't mind not trading him the rest of the season, but if you wait till after the season, he's going to have basically no value because everyone knows he has to be traded. No one's seen anything from this guy. If you trade him now, maybe someone thinks, maybe there's a team. Let's say the Washington football team is double with Dwayne Haskins and they don't have confidence in Kyle Allen. Obviously, Alex Smith, just because of his leg. Maybe like, you know what? If they don't have confidence, they can even win the NFC East. Maybe like, you know what? They're like, let's take a shot. Let's give up a mid-round pick. And if Jets can even get like a 3rd or a 4th round pick for Darnold, I think that's pretty good. He's a guy that probably is not going to be on the team next year.
Right, I agree with you. Speaking about Sam Darnold, I'm thinking about the comparison. Sometimes he gets to like Daniel Jones. And now Daniel Jones, definitely gets under fire a lot because of the turnovers and whatnot. Do you guys think that Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback?
The turnovers are really like backbreaking sometimes, and I don't want to get too crazy because it's his second year, brand new coaching staff. If he's still turning it over like this by like year 4, I think we got a problem, but I'm going to give him some time. Let's see if we can get some pieces back. He's still learning the league. He's still learning how defenses are going to scheme against him. And I think hopefully he'll start to figure it out because I think you mentioned this before. He has shown flashes where, like, all right, like he can definitely make some plays. If he can, like, start to figure out things a little bit more, I think hopefully we should be all right.
What else
when he got drafted, I started laughing. I cannot believe they took him at 6. After his rookie year, I thought, you know what? This kid, I think has potential. He just got to watch for turnovers. This year, he has not played well. But it's not all of his fault. He's had completely new coaching staff. He lost Saquon Barkley. Sterling Shepard has had some injuries. The offensive line, which wasn't great last year, is even worse. My guess is that he'll get a pass this year, but next year, I don't care what happens, it's make or break. Next year is either going to be the year that he becomes a superstar and all the jokes and criticism about him being drafted at 6th overall are going to go away, or the Giants franchise is going to be set back possibly 5 years because this guy was a complete bust.
Mia, what do you think? You think Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback? Do you think we can trust him?
I don't think so. I've kind of thought that he came in. Personally, I think it's kind of unfair for me to say that at first just because I was a huge Eli fan and I was kind of upset that like cheated him out of his last season. But like just from like what I've seen recently, I don't know. I don't see him like the other teams, like the Aaron Rodgers or the Ben Roethlisbergers. Like I don't see him taking on that role really. But I don't know. He hasn't been here that long. It could change, but personally, no.
You think Manning was cheated out of the season with like them putting Jones in like midway through? You think that was like a kind of a
like we obviously weren't doing well. It was probably like talked about a lot and a good decision, but I was just upset over it because I think I was also upset when they cut like his 200 game starting streak and
that was horrible. Ben McAdoo.
Like year 2 was like I don't know. I don't think it was right, but you got to move on to the future. So I was just personally upset about it, but
I get what you mean because like take it like out of context. Like all right, let's say like New York Yankees, like the year Derek Jeter is going to retire, he's like not playing great. They throw in another shortstop. You obviously want to do like the benefit of your team, but also while respecting players and stuff like that. And a guy who's like been so committed to the franchise. The ruining his like 200 game streak thing was just completely like there was no reason to start Geno Smith. That made no sense. That was just completely disrespectful. Completely disrespectful. But like it's hard to judge that Jones decision because, you know, like you said, like Manning wasn't playing great. The team wasn't doing that great, to be honest. But at the same time, I feel like you want to put your team in the best spot. And I think, you know, Manning was he's a good sport about that kind of thing. I mean, you know, he always was. Like, he's going to be neutral about that kind of situation. But, yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from. Kind of, there was definitely, you know, you could see from a couple angles that it might have been disrespect. But, I mean, you know what? So you don't think that Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback? You don't
Yeah,
think
besides all that, I still don't think he is, no.
you know, I think he played well last season. Obviously nothing like spectacular, but he played well. He played pretty decently consistent. He's had a pretty, I would say, kind of a bad start. He had like 2 touchdowns in like 6 games. It's not great. QB rating's like 55, something like that. He can run, which is good. We like that. He can get out of the pocket. Say he works on turnovers, right? Say you take any of his games and you take out the turnover that you know ends the game or ends the drive. If instead of a turnover he's throwing a touchdown, yeah, you say he's great. But I think his problems are in the most important areas. That's why he's like an issue right now. I want to stand behind him, and I believe he can be good for this team. He can be really good for this team. It's just, you know, he has things he has to work on, and he's gonna get. I think you really can only give him till like, you know, the end of this season or maybe one more year for them to figure that out. Because if you can't figure that out in the next year, then I think we can think about considering a different guy at quarterback. But, you know, right now I feel like, you know, he's our best option. He can be a playmaker. He can be a playmaker if you put a good offense around him, I think. And, you know, he didn't have a lot of his weapons. He never really has all of them. But I think he's good, but he's got a lot to work on. 100%. Definitely. I think that's it, guys. Thank you so much for talking. It was good. Talk Giants football and Jets football briefly. Again, thank you so much. And, see you guys around.